Welcome to this best of edition of Issues and Ideas with Chris DeBello.
Can you think of any other time in modern-day politics when there's been division like we're seeing today? What's been the results? Well, very little legislation passed, programs that millions rely on for their health and well-being, not just endangered, even cut, servitude to one replacing serving the many, and, your basic overall hostility that's expanding the division even more. Doesn't sound like there's much hope, does it? Well, I believe there is. If you learn from the ideas and insights my guest offers through his experience, he also shares in his recent book, Finding the Third Way, Lessons in the Politics of, say it with me, Civility, from my journey through history, while being a partner and co-founder of the law firm Davis, Goldberg & Galper, partner in the public relations firm Trident DMG, served as special counsel to President Bill Clinton, and to this day is a devoted Willie Mays fan, Lanny Davis. How are you today, sir?
Say hey, Willie. And now I'm a Knicks. I've always been a Knicks fan, but thank you for that intro. I do want to just jump into a very provocative and interesting comment you made. Has there ever been a time in U.S. history? And I don't think there has been, except for one time period where 300,000 Americans killed each other, called the Civil War, and that was when we were using firearms. But short of using firearms, the Trump era, and Democrats carry some responsibility too, is the worst in American history. So I do agree with you.
But when you look at just the sheer numbers of things in the House and the Senate, the numbers being so evenly divided, what does that tell of the American citizenship, that we don't know which one's the better offer right now? Or is this an opportunity, as many believe in the midterms coming up in November for the Democrats, to really see the door being wide open for them to make a difference and move forward?
Well, first of all, the difference nowadays is personal demonization of somebody you disagree with. Back in the days where it was Ronald Reagan, very partisan, conservative Republicans versus very liberal Democrats, and a lot of really vitriolic words being exchanged, at the end of a long day, it was absolutely a fact that President Reagan would get into the presidential limousine, very quietly go out South Lawn exit, go up to the Hill, go into a side entrance where nobody would be surrounding him, although, of course, people were aware that the president was visiting. And where would he go? He'd go into Tip O'Neill's office, the Speaker of the House, who during the day was beating up on him, verbally but not physically. And what would they do? They would tip a scotch or whiskey, they would laugh, they would disagree, and they would figure it out. That's a big deal difference. And I know in the Clinton White House, with all the polarization between Newt Gingrich and Bill Clinton and Democrats and Republicans during the daytime, Bill Clinton and Newt Gingrich, and I will throw in Joe Scarborough because now he's a TV personality, but back then he was a backbencher, hardcore conservative. They would sit down, and what did they do? They balanced the budget. And when balance the budget, that's an expression that you say, what? Come on, nobody balances any budgets anymore. And when Bill Clinton left office on his last day after 2 terms, he left a $3 billion surplus. And he didn't do that himself. He did it with Gingrich and Scarborough and the Republicans compromising. So that's a big deal difference than today and back then.
Well, another big difference is, and I said this in the intro for a reason, serving one versus serving the many. And, it's great when you see Marjorie Taylor Greene, John Cornyn, Tom Tillis, the list is growing, speaking out against Donald Trump. But the problem is they're all on their way out. Unless, for those who aren't getting primaried out or saying, I've had enough, I'm out of here, those are the ones we need to hear that from.
Well, that's the reason they're free, is they don't worry about losing their office because they're out anyway. It'd be great to see a couple of members of the Republican caucus say, you know what, this job doesn't pay me enough to really undermine our Constitution, because The Congress is supposed to be the check and balance to the executive, and we've got the spending power. That's what the framers wrote. We want there to be a stalemate between executive power and the Congress. We don't want a dictatorship of the Congress. They were more worried, if you read the history of the writing of the Constitution, believe it or not, James Madison wrote they were more worried about a parliamentary democracy because of their memories of somebody named Cromwell who took over the British Parliament and almost imposed a dictatorship with the Parliament. So they were worried about too much power in the Congress. But the whole point is checks and balances. Don't trust anyone. And we're going to need Republicans who are not fearful about losing their jobs, not just the ones on their way out. But I have to say, Democrats are no different. Democrats have not stood up to Democratic presidents. Everyone feels a need to be loyal to the president of their party. So I'm trying to be even-handed here, that I'm not just blaming it on a party or a group of Republicans. It's part of our system, this loyalty issue overcoming patriotism and commitment to the Constitution. I think both parties now are waking up to the need for there to be checks and balances because Donald Trump's made it very clear he thinks executive power is supreme and that there isn't a check and balance. There is a whole group of conservative Republicans who have invested in projects about executive power. They actually call it the unitary executive, which is contradicted by James Madison and the Constitution. There should be no unitary anything. The whole system was set up not to trust any part of the three branches of government. So we've got a challenge, certainly, and it's both parties. I keep saying Democrats have a lot of responsibility for this mess, as well as Republicans.
Dr. Lanny Davis, his book, Finding the Third Way, and his website, LannyJDavis.com. You're listening to Issues and Ideas. So let's take that approach looking at both parties, because for the Democrats, everyone's saying a door wide open. I just said it earlier, too. But it's not an automatic. And for Republicans, what is it they need to do to avoid falling back to the days of almost irrelevancy, back to the days, I'm showing my political age here, Bob Livingston and Trent Lott leadership times?
Two great people, by the way.
Oh, yeah, no slam on them, but they were very complacent.
Mr. Livingston and Mr. Gingrich, over the years, I've actually become friends with, which shows it's possible. So I think there's about two or three answers. I'd speak to the Democrats first, because I'm a Democrat. I think we have failed miserably in giving the American people an alternative to Donald Trump. And the proof for me is I have a lot of liberal Democratic friends, some of them conservative Democratic friends, who voted for Trump. And the reason they always give me is they dislike Trump's character. They think he lies. They think he ignores the rule of law, all of that stuff. Then why did you vote for him? Because you're worse, meaning you Democrats. You don't have anything to tell me positive. You only know how to trash Trump. So for me, my big goal in the next few months, I'm writing some columns on the subject, is the way James Carville said, is the economy stupid? Well, I'm saying to Democrats, it's policies stupid. We have to change policies that have offended the middle class and working class of the country that we used to have, that were Franklin Roosevelt, Harry Truman, John Kennedy Democrats. We've lost a lot of them. So I'm focusing on what are we saying, what do we stand for that's offensive, and how can we have a positive message to the American people.
When you take into account, too, as of most recent polling, there's a huge block of voters that are just drifting right now, specifically the black and Hispanic voters. Trump did gain a lot of support from those two demographics, but for a variety of reasons, they're turning away from the Republicans, but have yet, in great part, turned to the Democrats. Is that going to be the deciding factor, what happens with the midterms?
Well, you're absolutely right. They're turning away from, but they're not turning to the Democratic Party, because when you turn away from something, you have to have something that you're listening to that you like. You don't turn away and then hear silence. you think to yourself, I have nowhere to go if all you're doing is silence. So for me, I'll just give you a prelude to what I'm about to start writing for Real Clear Politics, which is a series of columns about what are we for. And it comes down to, without imitating him exactly, it comes down to thinking like Bill Clinton. When he left office on his last day after 2 terms, can you imagine if Donald Trump could say something like this, which of course he can? On Bill Clinton's last day after 2 terms, he had a 66% Gallup job approval rating. That is unprecedented in American history. How did he get, with all of the issues and controversies, and when I was at the White House, they called them scandals, which I was responsible for handling with the White House press corps. How did Bill Clinton achieve 2/3 of the American people gave him a positive job approval rating? Right now, Donald Trump is down to 30% job approval, the lowest in American history. How did Clinton do it? It's the policies, stupid.
Again, the book is Finding the Third Way. He talks about through personal experience. This isn't theory or studies or research. It's through personal experience and observations of how there lies before us answers and opportunities for a stronger, better population as opposed to politicians. You can also learn more about Lanny's life and world at LannyJDavis.com. Lanny, it's always an education speaking with you. Look forward to your upcoming columns. I know they will additionally be educational. Thanks for being here today.
Can I add a personal comment before you hang up? Which is,
Sure.
I'm a Jersey City boy. I'm a great fan.
This past week, the Social Security Administration released their annual report on the status of the much relied on retirement and disability program, and no, the news was not good, as the date of the fund insolvency moved even more soon than it had already been anticipated. So what's this mean for people receiving Social Security benefits? Is there anything to be done to extend rather than shorten the solvency of the program? Here to explore all this is the Senior Vice President and Senior Policy Director with the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, Marc Goldwein. How are you today, Marc?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me on.
Well, great to have you here to help people better understand, because they hear they see the headlines and the fear strikes, so they miss out on important details. And to see the report on Social Security by the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget and answers and solutions as well, crfb.org is their website, and we have that link at our homepage as well. So I said the news was not good, Marc. How bad was the news in this latest report?
It's pretty bad. Look, people should be a little scared. Here's what the report says. Social Security is projected to run out of its reserves in 6 years, in 2032. And then Medicare is projected to run out of its reserves 6 months later, in 2033. Now, that doesn't mean either program goes away. But what the law says is that when it has no reserves, that the benefits get cut to match the revenue. And for Social Security, that is a 22% benefit cut, abrupt, immediate, and probably across the board.
Now, as I said, the insolvency date continues to get closer and closer. As you said, now down to 6 years. It had been longer, not too long ago, ironically. What's been the driving catalyst for this dark day getting closer?
So the insolvency date moved up a bit. They moved up 2 or 3 months because there's less revenue coming in from taxation of benefits from the one big beautiful bill. But the real reason that we've lost time is because we spent a year ignoring this issue, right? So last year we had 7 years, and then we waited a year. So big surprise, now we have 6 years. The problem is we've been doing this since the 80s. We've known this problem was coming. We've been talking about fixing it since the 90s, and yet here we are in the year 2026, and we're no closer, and if anything, further from fixing it than we were back then.
When the whole program was created by initiatives from then President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, didn't FDR even say that what we're doing is not a forever situation? At some point in the future, new ideas and new paths have to be taken, and it's just been completely, totally ignored?
Well, in fairness, I think that what he envisioned was the program was going to get bigger, and that is exactly what happened. It expanded to include survivors' benefits and spousal benefits and disability benefits, and to be larger and to be automatically indexed. So we have, in fact, followed through on his vision to expand the program. The problem is we haven't followed through on his vision to fully finance it. FDR always believed Social Security should be paid for internally. People should pay their own way. And right now, the revenue is way short of the benefits. And so either we need more taxes coming in, less benefits going out, or some combination. And frankly, it's hard for me to see any solution other than some combination.
For you listening, Social Security currently provides monthly benefits to around 71 million Americans, and that's for 43% of seniors, all or most of their personal income. So, again, like Marc said, there is a fear that's growing as far as the insolvency time gets closer and closer. In the past, has this happened, and how has it been addressed in the past to extend the solvency?
Yeah, so we've had two times in the past that we've approached insolvency, in 1977 and 1983. And both times in different ways, policymakers came together and they enacted a set of fixes. We raised the retirement age. We increased the amount of income subject to the cap. We changed the payroll tax. We brought more people onto the program. We adjusted the formula. Like, the solutions are out there. And I do also want to point out, you're right, there are so many people that really rely on Social Security, and a 22% benefit cut would be devastating. It would cut benefits by $500 a month, even in just today's dollars. But there's a whole other set of people that don't even really rely on their Social Security at all. The Social Security benefits are now $100,000 for the very richest couples. And so there's opportunities, I think, to slow the benefit growth for seniors that have tens of millions of dollars in assets in order to preserve it for those that really are relying on the program.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like an obvious observation. If someone is sitting on savings or life really worked out for them and they have assets of 7, 8, 9 figures, why do they need Social Security?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair question. Now, we've proposed something that doesn't actually take away their Social Security. All it says is your Social Security benefits can't go over, for a couple, $100,000 a year. So even if you have tens of millions, we're still saying you can collect $100,000, just maybe not $110,000. I think that's a pretty modest proposal, and it wouldn't fix Social Security on its own, but it would help make some significant leeway. And
you mentioned, too, that the idea, the plan was that you pay in and take out what you pay in like you would with a bank account or a checking account, but just because of the way the program has grown and the finances have all but collapsed, that idea is long past, and I don't think we'd ever get back to that ratio, would we?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is people have been getting out more than they put in on average. It was never supposed to be like a savings account that you get what you put back in. But there was this idea that you paying in sort of bought you the ticket to be able to get benefits. The problem is those benefits have been larger than the payments. And the scheme is falling apart because there's such a large gap. And so either people are going to pay more, they're going to have to get less, or there's one scary option, which is the federal government may say it's too hard to change Social Security. We're just going to borrow. We're just going to borrow another $800 trillion over the next 75 years. That would put the country into a debt crisis.
There's various programs under the umbrella of Social Security, but they're separate funds. Is there a way would it be prudent to combine the funds, and would that prolong the solvency?
Right. So the retirement fund runs out in 2032. There's a separate disability fund. That fund is healthy. And we could take some money from the disability fund, put it to the retirement fund. That would buy us about a year and a half. So that could get us to 2034. That might make sense as we're sort of buying time to phase in changes, but it's not a permanent solution. It's a kick the can that literally gets you, from one presidential administration to the next. It doesn't get you much further than that.
When you say to raise taxes to create revenue for the program, what kind of tax increase would be ballpark be talking about?
So if we were to do this entirely from the payroll tax rate, we'd ultimately have to increase that rate by 50%. So right now, the payroll tax rate for Social Security is 12.4%. You pay half, your employer pays half. We'd have to gradually increase it to about 19%, 18 or 19%. So this is a massive increase. Now, we could do less of that if we solve some of the problem by raising that cap, that $185,000 cap on income subject to the wage cap. But that's not going to solve the whole problem either. That, over the long run, solves maybe a quarter of the problem. And we could also look at things like subjecting some kinds of fringe benefits to the tax. So we don't have to do it all with the rate increase, but to solve this all on the tax side, over time, we're talking about a very large tax increase.
You present, and again, over at your website, crfb.org, you present detailed paths to repair what's already broken. Problem is, well, we have the midterms looming, and if the party who is in charge remains in charge, we see program cuts as their idea. As far as what's left to be cut, other than again money to the beneficiaries.
Well, look, Social Security benefits not only are large for those rich beneficiaries, but they actually continue to grow pretty rapidly over time. Over the next 75 years, average real benefits, meaning adjusted for inflation, are projected to triple. And so there is room to save money by just slowing the growth. But we have 6 years until insolvency, and we're not going to make huge changes to current beneficiaries, which means there really is no option other than having tax revenue. You can't save money from new beneficiaries fast enough. And frankly, I don't think you can raise taxes high enough, which is why I say we're going to need some kind of combination of more taxes and less benefits. But it doesn't have to be less benefits than today. It just has to be less benefits than projected in the future.
I know this is outside your realm, but one of the other contributing facts to the solvency of Social Security is the fact that undocumented immigrants, they can't, at least legally, receive benefits from Social Security, but when they're working on the books, they pay into Social Security. So theoretically, if, as so many people want to do, you remove that demographic from the contributing population, that would just magnify the problem.
That's right. I mean, one of the funny things, maybe not funny, but there's some people that think you can fix Social Security by cutting fraud. It turns out fraud of collecting benefits is actually very low. The biggest source of fraud in Social Security is people that are illegally paying into the program, right? And so it's illegal, undocumented, whatever you want to call it, immigrants that are actually helping the program by paying in and not getting benefits back. And so the recent, strengthening of immigration rules and administration actually has worsened Social Security's trust fund.
Well, as I said, we have the midterm elections coming up, and hopefully for you listening, this will be a key part of what you're asking and listening from the candidates when they start talking about things that matter to you. We have the Social Security report over at our downloads page. If you don't do it on a full stomach, trust me, but check that out because a lot of graphs and a lot of information. And to find some paths to solutions, that's what the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget is providing at crfb.org. He is their Senior Vice President and Senior Policy Director, Marc Goldwein. Thanks so much for being here today and helping us better understand the urgency of finding a solution to a very serious problem. Thanks again.
Thanks for having me.
If you're listening via your favorite podcast platform, be sure to follow and subscribe.
Question. You ever ride the subway? Not depending on the city. Experience can certainly vary. Some systems perform better than others. There's more route and schedule information available with some more than others. While they can all get you to where you need to go, the times can vary. Sounds a lot like investing in business relationships, doesn't it? My next guest thought so. He believed it so much, he's written a book based on this idea. His story is one of growing up in New York City, learning underground on the subway, then later above ground on Wall Street and in boardrooms. Shares his story and investing insight in his book, How to Ride the Subway, getting around on Wall Street and in life, along with being Chief Strategy Officer and partner with Cerity Partners. He's a frequent CNBC contributor and a true subwaytologist, Jimmy Lebenthal. How are you today, sir?
Oh, I'm great, Chris, and I really have to thank you for kindly introducing the book that way. I may have to record that and use that myself. That was so well done.
Well, I actually read the book. I'm one of those odd people, so it's like... And to learn more about not just Jimmy's book, but his entire financial world, jimmylebenthal.com. Cerity Partners, Cerity, CerityPartners.com. We have those links over at our webpage. I have seen investing compared to a lot of things, from cheese to animals to several points beyond that. What was your aha moment when you connected subways and everything you need for strategy down there with Wall Street and the strategies you need up there?
Great question, Chris. And, the reason to write the book is that I frequently appear on TV as an investor and somebody who gives commentary on the markets. what I find is that when I speak, I have about 15 seconds to get my ideas out before the anchor cuts me off or my fellow contributors start chiming in. So I wanted to write a book so I could give a little more long format to how I invest. But just giving a book or just writing a book about investing would have been a little bit boring. And the simple truth is I absolutely love the subways. And I use the subway in New York City to get to the studio, which is the New York Stock Exchange, for the airing of the CNBC show that I'm on. And it was just while I was on the subway, I said, why don't I use my passion, my love for the subways, which goes back to age 6 in the 1970s. Why don't I use that as a metaphor for investing to spice things up a little bit instead of just talking about dividend stocks or how the markets move? Just put some metaphors from the subway in it. And I hope it works. I'm happy I did it.
Well, I think you should be, too, because it'll teach the novices, give a more focused direction to those who are wandering. And for those who are like to think of themselves as experienced investors, it just reinforces a lot of basic ideas and even reminds us, like, for example, you start off about knowing where you're going, because if you don't know where you're going to go, how do you know what you're going to need in order to get there? What are you going to invest in if you don't know where you want to go?
Well, that's exactly right. And again, the metaphor of the New York City subway system, at least in Manhattan, is that it's very oriented along north-south axes. So most of the subway lines come down either the west side or the east side or midtown. There's very few cross-Manhattan subway lines. There is the shuttle, but not much more than that. And so if you're trying to get from the upper west side to the upper east side, hey, guess what? The subway is not your spot. And in a similar way, if you're trying to make money and maybe you don't want to take risk, well, you know what? The equity market is not your speed. You should be in the bond market. That's a great example, Chris, of the metaphor that I use. You know, other metaphors that frame the chapters in the book include things like patience. The subway will arrive. It will get you where you need to go. So will the stock market. Perseverance. Probably my favorite, though, is serendipity, of just being aware that the world does move in random collisions that tend to work out for your benefit. And so sometimes you can be on the subway and you can see a crazy sight. And I use in the book the example of an underground rail yard in Upper Manhattan that I came across one day. And it's just a way of exploring and finding new things, finding better things, which the stock market always gives you an opportunity to find really exciting, good new ways to make money.
And there are running themes you have going throughout your book as well, as far as you think you figured it out. You think this is going to work. Everything's going to be perfect. You know this is the thing. It's not always going to be that way, is it?
Listen, that's a great, that forms a chapter. I think the name of the chapter is Bad Things Happen. And I use as the entering anecdote to that chapter, when Superstorm Sandy hit New York City, I think it was 2013, it was just a perfect strike on the harbor of New York City, and it caused a storm surge where basically lower Manhattan was about 10 feet underwater. Well, you know, water flows to the lowest spot, and the lowest spot are the subway systems and the tunnels that go underneath the East River. So the subway system was inundated, it was flooded, it was basically out of service for a couple of days, and in some cases there was maintenance that went on for years to repair the damage. Look, sometimes in the stock market, bad things happen. We can look at the last 18 months or so and see that we've had a very dramatic decline. When the war with Iran started, we had a dramatic decline when the tariffs were announced on Liberation Day in 2025. But the subway system is still here, and the stock market is still a great place to make money. As we can see right now, Chris, as you and I are talking, we're at all-time highs in the stock market. It's just a matter of bearing down, having the grit to get through the bad times, which will inevitably happen. Can't be avoided.
Jimmy Lebenthal in his book, How to Ride the Subway, Getting Along on Wall Street and in Life, JimmyLebenthal.com. He's a partner, chief strategy officer with Cerity Partners, CerityPartners.com. Both links, of course, at our homepage, and you're listening to Issues and Ideas. Question on for the purpose of the novice or the newbie. You can hear of a stock, see a company, maybe you or someone else on CNBC talking about it. You punch in the ticker symbol in Google and stock rating. You will get inundated with information, and it could be confused. You could have 25 analysts saying, strong buy, get this now before it's too late. And there'll be one analyst saying, sell it now. How does the novice try to decipher things like that?
I think there's really two ways of doing this. You can hire a professional like myself to pick the stocks for you, or you can do what I do, which is what I recommend in the book, which is to really dive deep and become an expert in the stock that you're looking at. Specifically, what I mean by this is getting into the financial statements, looking at the footnotes to those financial statements, figuring out what you can find out that the rest of the world doesn't know. And again, with this analogy that goes throughout the book, I draw it back to the subway system. Many people ride the subway underneath the East River every day. There's probably 100,000 or more. And those tunnels are fabulous constructions of engineering. In fact, the first tunnel, subway tunnel under the East River, was longer than the Holland Tunnel under the Hudson River when it opened in the early 20th century. When the Holland Tunnel opened for vehicular traffic, the President of the United States called and inaugurated it. It was big fanfare. All the newspapers talked about it. Nobody talked about the subway tunnel that was created years earlier, and that was longer and still to this day, as I said, transports over 100,000 people through it. That, what I'm describing there, yeah, it may be a little bit geeky, but that's the sort of expertise, that's the sort of level of knowledge that if you want to be a stock picker, you really should do. You should get into those financial statements, and not just for the company you're looking at, but its competitors, maybe even its suppliers or customers. So that's my advice to the novice: is get your hands dirty, really become an expert in it.
And there's enough material by which everyone can do that, and it's a learning experience to be sure, but it's for your benefit to indeed learn valid information. I want to wrap up with this idea. You mentioned here you certainly show yourself to be a proponent of it throughout your book. Long-term, holding long-term. I said one time to a friend of mine, are you a long-term holder? He said, yeah, I hold a stock for up to 2 weeks sometimes. I mean, especially if it's a dividend stock, why would you be anything else but a long-term holder?
Well, to each their own. I love the subways. Some people think the subways are dirty and smelly and they don't want to go in them. That's fine. Those people can be traders. But the beauty about long-term investing is if you just stick with the stock market, and in particular stick with high-quality stocks, the names you know, the best companies in each industry, you can feel very comfortable that they will get you through thick and thin. Now, there's going to be times like we're in right now where the stock market's been rallying for 4 years and everything seems easy. But being in those quality stocks, even through the downturn, is the way that you can actually make money coming on the other side of a downturn when those companies thrive as their competitors sometimes have been hobbled by the tough business conditions of, say, a recession. So for me, the biggest thing, bar none, is to stay in the market for as long as you can, and I mean years and years, decades. I think, Chris, quite often about what is the biggest value that I add to my clients. And it is, frankly, holding their hands when the stock market looks a little tricky, like we were just talking about last year, Liberation Day, or this year with the war in Iran, and just reminding them that we've made money over the decades and we're likely to do so in the decades to come.
Yeah, without a doubt, a quality stock is a quality stock even in a down period, and those down periods last a lot shorter when it is indeed that quality stock. This is a great book for investors of all levels, as well as if you want some guidance for life in general, because what Jimmy writes about can certainly be expanded into whatever your specific career is, whatever your business relationships are. You'll find it very quickly to understand as well how to ride the subway, getting around on Wall Street and in life. Learn more about Jimmy Lebenthal at jimmylebenthal.com. He's also Chief Strategy Officer, partner with Cerity Partners, Cerity, C-E-R-I-T-Y, partners.com. Both those links at our homepage. Jimmy, thank you for an education and a fun ride through the subways, no pun intended, and the history, because you make it understandable and everyone can appreciate the ideas that you're communicating and benefit from them. Thanks for being here today.
Chris, I really thank you. You've been such a gracious host, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to dive a little deeper into this book with you. I really appreciate it.
Every day on the Issues and Ideas Facebook page, Chris DeBello shares commentary and analysis about the latest breaking news. Join the conversation by following Issues and Ideas on Facebook. You'll find the link to the Issues and Ideas Facebook page on our website homepage.
It's hard to find. I'm just caught up in the rain. I hold my eyes and everything I didn't give up before you. When I met you, something changed and now it got my feeling good. Now that I got something to lose, something to lose.
That's the song Something to Lose being performed by my next guest, as well she should, because along with being the song singer, she wrote it. She devoted herself to her music as a goal for her life starting out at the age of 8, but as everyone who makes that decision quickly finds out, that devotion will be tested by a whole lot of challenges. The road just became a lot more clear for her, thanks to her winning the recent Amplify Your Ambitions music competition, which I believe she is a great living example of the name of that competition. Originally from East Brunswick, New Jersey, she's gone from playing for change in the New York City subway to an online music download career with the downloads in the hundreds of thousands, saw one for even over 1 million. What's next for her? Well, let's find out by saying hello to Karen Hardy. How are you today, Karen?
Hey, how are you? That was such a good intro. Thank you.
Well, you got good stuff, and you can check out Karen's music, Instagram, Spotify, Apple Music. We've got links on our homepage as well because, for those individual pages, the links are obscenely long, so trying to tell you them, it's just easier to show you where they are. Let's. Yeah. We played a little piece of Something to Lose, but talk about your music. What's your sound? What are you going for?
I would say my sound is like pop R&B, or like pop soul. That's kind of always what I've said. It's definitely like I am a pop girl for sure, but I, like you said, you used the word soulful, like when you were listening to my music. So I definitely like soulful, some R&B influence, a lot of like throwback 90s influence. Yeah. So the short answer is like pop R&B.
I'm glad you say influence because so many times I hear interviews or see reviews. Someone says they sound like somebody. I'm going to go old school here, and because it's limiting. Because if someone said, "Well, that person he sounds like Frank Sinatra," okay, I'm going to go download his stuff. I'll go see him. Oh yeah, sounds just like Sinatra. But then they'll go back and listen to Sinatra. So trying to be presented as sounding like someone, that's just going to limit your longevity. And I was reading some background about you. As you quickly learned, it's very tough to go from being one of many to being one. How do you think you've done that?
Yeah, I think you have to find multiple things that set you apart. And it's kind of been the journey of my music career, figuring out what exactly it is that sets me apart. And I think I'm leaning more into, obviously, I do think my voice is that is Karen. But on top of that, my story is very unique. And I'm just starting to lean into that. Also, everyone's personality is so unique. So I'm trying less to be like what I'm expected to be like and more just authentically myself. So that's kind of how I'm figuring out exactly what sets Karen Hardy apart. But yeah.
And the way you do things too, you're telling heart stories from your life and experience. Do you ever hear back from people saying, I was going to listen to a song that I thought was about you, but oh my God, it's about me?
Yeah, that's a good way of putting that. Yeah, I get a lot of DMs. I've talked a lot about depression online and mental health and stuff like that. And I get a lot of people reaching out. Even when I post about, I have this one song about being cheated on, and I got a lot of girls reaching out being like, this is exactly what happened to me. Yeah, those are the best messages to get.
From Karen Hardy, who is stepping forward through winning the Amplify Your Ambitions competition. You can check out her great music in pretty much every place you should be checking out great music. Spotify, Apple. You can follow her on Instagram. You're listening to Issues and Ideas. You mentioned about, and I referenced it in the introduction too, about you have a path, but then you always find out there's going to be a lot of challenges along the way. And you had a couple of rough spots there. Why did you not give up? What got you back on track?
I just think it's like a moth to a flame. I think a lot of musicians have that feeling where it's like they just cannot stop. But this is like, for me, this has been my dream literally since I was like 7 years old. Like, there was nothing else that I ever wanted for my life. I just wanted to be a singer. And every time I would take a step back from music, I wouldn't even take a big step back, but like detach myself a little bit, something would pull me back in. And I can say like now I'm at a I'm just at a great spot with music where it's like I really think that I'm doing it fully for the love of music and not, I mean, of course I want to have this like big career, but at the end of the day, like it's my love of music that's driving me and not really for anything else. So I think it's just like how much I love it. I wish I didn't sometimes, but
but it's the difference of doing art for the art before the benefits, as opposed to doing art for the benefits first.
Yeah, I think we all get lost somewhere along the way. Like, I think most musicians love it when they're, a kid, they really authentically love it. But then, of course, like, ego stuff gets in the way. But, you just have to figure out how to, like, push past the ego and, like, get back to why you really started doing it in the first place.
You've been doing your music career for quite some time before the Amplify Your Ambitions music contest came along. How much of what you learned on the way to that point in your life helped you succeed the way you did in the competition?
I've been thinking about that a lot, actually, because I don't think if I had this opportunity like 5-10 years ago, I don't think I would have been able to show up the way I did. Like, obviously I would have like worked really hard to get it, but I think like I went into the contest, I really wanted it. I really wanted to win the $200,000, obviously, that SoFi was offering, but it didn't feel like the end of the world if I didn't get it. Like, I was like, okay, I'm still gonna pursue music. Like, I'm still gonna find a way to make this work. This obviously would make things a lot easier and a lot more possible. But I think, just like knowing that it wasn't going to be the end of my career if I didn't get it, that was a big part. Then also just like my confidence on stage and like everything from my songwriting has gotten better to my performing on stage to my singing. Like, it's just, it all kind of lined up together.
It's like with self-publishing books. Doing your own thing for music, it ain't cheap, as they say, and I have no doubt $200,000 is going to move you forward quite a few more squares faster than you were probably planning on.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. This is $200,000 is life-changing. But I think you just have to like tell yourself like, okay, I'm going to figure out either way. But now it's like a huge, huge weight off my shoulders, and on top of that, it's just like I can dream bigger now. I can like see the full vision and actually make it happen.
Do you plan on staying, I guess, your own boss, or are you looking for to get signed? What are your plans as far as that's concerned?
Not looking to get signed yet, but I definitely want people on my team. So I think the next step is like for sure management of some sort, just someone to bounce ideas off of and help me push it forward. I'm good at the music part, but like the marketing stuff, that's not my expertise. So that's another thing, like this money is going to allow me to like bring more people on who are actually good at their area, Well,
you're definitely worthy of being found by more people than you already have, which is a spectacular number as a DIY project, I guess we can call it. And, certainly talk about your family, because you have two older brothers with disabilities. How much did that help in the way that your communication skills came about for your music?
Yeah, I'm like obsessed with my family and especially my brothers. Like we're all just really close. And we were growing up like in these environments. Like our community was kind of like my brother's friends and stuff like that. And I realized really quickly that music was a universal language, kind of like even for someone who maybe can't get their words out as easily. It's like a just everyone gravitates towards music and finds some type of relief in it. And then I realized that it just like that that just became something that was more and more aware, like I became more and more aware of as I got older. And so now I work within the like autism community with adults that are super musically inclined, and it just kind of solidified like music is a language. It is fully, it's like the one thing that I think we all feel comforted by, which is just this incredible thing. So yeah, that's my long-winded answer for that.
And very, very telling answer too, and I think very, very instructive for anyone, for you listening. If you want great music, definitely listen to Karen's stuff. And again, we had the links for her music at Spotify and Apple over at our homepage. And find out more about her story too over at her Instagram page. And if you just do a Google search of Karen Hardy, because Karen's very open about what she did, the path she took, what she overcame, both with herself and her chosen field. And I think you get some very valuable lessons for whatever it is that you have a passion for or you have a goal for in your life as well. Follow Karen over at Instagram. And again, check out her music because it'll be a good thing that you did and you want to share it as well. Karen, pleasure meeting you. Pleasure learning more about your music and you. And thanks so much for being here today. All the best.
You too. Thank you so much for having me.
The following program is brought to you in living color on NBC.
Everybody loves somebody sometime. Yes, sir. Now, oh no, I didn't miss it. I hit my head. I feel pretty good tonight, and I should, because today I was named Playmate of the Month by the Los Angeles Police Department. And another thing, another nice thing happened to me today. NBC hung a star on my dressing room door. Mickey Rooney.
Today is Dean Martin's birthday. Over on our Facebook page, which you can find the link to on our website homepage, we'll be celebrating Dean's birthday by sharing some memories of Dean. Dean Martin is also responsible for my all-time favorite quote. Said this during a 1983 interview in London. You got to have fun. If you're not having fun, you might as well lay down, let them throw dirt on you. God wants us to have fun. In fact, fun, joy, laughter are blessings from God. I believe God himself would like to have some fun. If you don't believe me, then explain to me the giraffe, kangaroo, and armadillo, for starters. Jesus himself wanted people to have fun and enjoy life. Let's go to John chapter 2, verses 1 through 10. On the third day, there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Now both Jesus and his disciples were invited to the wedding, and when they ran out of wine, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." Jesus said to her, "Woman, what does your concern have to do with me? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Whatever he says to you, do it." Now there were set there 6 water pots of stone, according to the manner of purification of the Jews, containing 20 or 30 gallons apiece. Jesus said to them, "Fill the water pots with water." And they filled them up to the brim. And he said to them, "Draw some out now, and take it to the master of the feast." And they took it. When the master of the feast had tasted the water that was made wine, and did not know where it came from, but the servants who had drawn the water knew, the master of the feast called the bridegroom, and he said to him, "Every man at the beginning sets out the good wine, and when the guests have well drunk, then the inferior. You have kept the good wine until now." What the master of the banquet meant was that you start off with a little of the good stuff, Then you bring out the cheap wine once people have had too much to drink to really care what they're drinking anymore. Jesus cut out the cheap stuff and then came up with first-class award-winning wine. Jesus in the Beatitudes, which we read in the 6th chapter of Luke, encourages us to work through the bad times because we are to be happy. Here's what he teaches. This is from Luke chapter 6, verse 21. Blessed are you who weep now, for you shall laugh. Being happy is one of the major lessons we gain from the book of Proverbs. There's this in Proverbs chapter 17, verse 22. A merry heart does good like medicine, but a broken spirit dries the bones. As well as these words in Proverbs chapter 15, verse 13. A merry heart makes a cheerful countenance, but by sorrow of the heart the spirit is broken. Solomon, who is considered the wisest ever king of Israel, called on his people to be happy and have fun, realizing that the experience is a great gift from God. Solomon declares this truth in Ecclesiastes chapter 8, verse 15. So I commended enjoyment, because a man has nothing better under the sun than to eat, drink, and be merry, for this will remain with him in his labor all the days of his life, which God gives him under the sun. Since happiness and fun are good for us, James in James chapter 1, verse 17, confirms who is the true source. Reading here, every good gift and every perfect gift is from above and comes down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow of turning. It's Jesus in John chapter 10, verse 10, who confirms that all these gifts are indeed from God in heaven. The thief does not come except to steal and to kill and to destroy. I have come that they may have life and that they may have it more abundantly. God wants us to be happy every day. These instructions are given to us in Psalm chapter 118, verse 24. This is the day the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. The fun God wants us to have, by the way, isn't limited to adults. Happiness for children equally important to him. This wish is expressed in Zechariah chapter 8, verse 5. The streets of the city shall be full of boys and girls playing in its streets. Now, it's important to establish that the fun God wants us to have in each one of our days, that's not permission to be reckless. Nor are we to hurt others. Stealing, that's still a sin. Property damage. Mocking others, lying to others, as we maybe try to mask that sin as being, we're just joking around. Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 31 gives this instruction to us. Therefore, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do all to the glory of God. We also receive this guidance in Colossians chapter 3, verse 17. And whatever you do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. Fun and happiness comes to us from God and can only be experienced in the totally righteous way he wants when we turn to God. Let's go to 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verses 16 through 18. Rejoice always, pray without ceasing, in everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you. And as we devote ourselves to that, we do it with the knowledge that the fun and happiness that comes from God is an eternal blessing placed before us by Jesus in Revelation chapter 21, verse 4. And God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There shall be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying. There shall be no more pain, for the former things have passed away.
Thank you for listening today to this best of edition of Issues and Ideas with Chris DeBello. Chris will be back next week with more great conversations and information. Visit our website at issuesandideasradio.com.